All right, let's go ahead and get this webinar started. My name is Kelsey McFarlane. I'm the events manager here at RFPIO, and I want to thank everyone for joining us for our first webinar of 2021. Before I hand this over to our presenters for today, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. First, all attendees are in listen-only mode. If you run into any sort of technical issues or need any assistance, please utilize the chat feature located at the bottom of your screen. Second, we will be opening it up for Q&A with our presenters at the end of the session as time allows. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A panel located next to the chat panel at the bottom of your screen. Third, we will be sending out a recording of the webinar after the event so you can catch anything that you might have missed. Now I'm excited to hand this over to our presenters, Jamie and Brandon, as they dive into 2021, the year of efficient and effective proposal management. Thanks so much for being here today, guys.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I am Brandon. My role within RFPIO is to help proposal teams explore how to automate their proposal response process. Joining me today is Jamie.
Thanks, Brandon, and thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Jamie, and I work on the marketing team here at RFPIO, and I'm a big fan of industry data and excited to share these 2021 trends with you today. We're going to hop into our agenda. So first off, we're going to share the context around the 2021 benchmark report on proposal management, which you can already download. Some of you may have already read it. That's great. And then we're going to talk about some key trends proposal teams can expect to see and how to address them and other major challenges in 2021 head on.
Awesome. Well, I say we just jump right on into it then. So first thing I'm curious to know, and I'm sure others are as well, what led you to put this together? What was the motivation there?
I think like a lot of companies, we reached a moment at the end of 2020 and decided to reflect and plan on how we wanted 2021 to be different. And 2021 is an exciting time because 2020 taught businesses a lot about themselves and what was working and what wasn't. And we also all learned together that market context plays a huge impact in how successful we are. So understanding what's happening in the markets and the industries and what we can expect is a really big way of getting ahead of it. And part of what made 2020 so hard was no one had a way of anticipating and expecting what would happen next. So we took a look at our own numbers, you can see some of them here, and said, okay, from this, we have a sense of what our customers are doing. We've met with them. We know where they want to be going in 2021. We're working with them because that's the kind of relationship we have. And then we also said, but what about the wider world of proposal professionals? We have a sense of how we want to align our business and help customers be successful this year. But what could all proposal teams be doing to see a successful 2021 after such a difficult 2020?
Okay, so now you mentioned RFPIO customers, and I'm looking at these numbers and I'm wondering, did we reach out to anybody outside of our own customer base?
I'm so glad you asked that. Actually, 100% of this data from this report comes from APMP members. That's who we surveyed. We have a close relationship with APMP, and we figured that those were the best professionals to tap into to answer our questions and get a sense of the state of the world of proposal management, not just our customers. So in early January 2021, we surveyed nearly 150 members of APMP. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's the Association of Proposal Management Professionals. And so this gives us a full mix. You can see sort of the demographic breakdowns here. So it's not just RFPIO customers. In fact, I'd say the majority of them are not RFPIO customers. It's a mix of customers and non-customers, and that was really important to me. So do me a favor and look at the bottom right. It's the pink pie chart, and it says that only 43% of the companies surveyed currently have what we call a designated RFP software solution in place. This was really important to me. From a research perspective, this confirms that we did manage to get outside of just our own users. We were actually able to reach the market more broadly because only 43% are using any sort of software that's anything like RFPIO. And in that mix, there's a whole variety of other tools they could be using. Now I want to draw your eye up a little bit to the chart right above it, which says that 73% self-identified as leaders within their team. This is really important for me as I was looking at this data because this allows us to forecast a bit better for 2021. These are the people who are hopefully in the know around their company's goals and hiring expectations for their teams. And so we can really trust that these numbers are aligned with the businesses, not just because they come from leaders ultimately.
And that actually makes a lot of sense. When my teams talk to the proposal leaders about their 2021 goals, a lot of them are coming to us with concerns about whether or not they're going to be able to keep up with the number of RFPs they're going to be tasked to responding to.
That doesn't surprise me at all. From our research, we learned that 75% of teams plan to respond to more RFPs in 2021 than they did in 2020. And 72% are also looking to issue more proactive proposals too. That's a lot of work for proposal teams.
Okay, see now I'm looking at these mountains here, and I'm seeing everyone wants to respond to more RFPs, which of course means that there's going to be a lot more competition. But then on the right-hand side, I'm seeing this little tiny hill that they're not going to increase staff.
That's an excellent point. It's predicted that 2021 will see a huge amount of competition for winning submissions, yet only 37% of organizations surveyed plan on increasing staff, which is honestly kind of hard to fathom considering how much headcount was likely lost in 2020.
Okay, so you're saying that proposal teams are being tasked with responding to more, but they shouldn't expect any additional headcount to help them out with that.
I mean, that's what the numbers are telling us. So classically, you would have hired more people to accomplish more. If that's not an option, the only thing I can see as a path forward is automation and streamlining your operations so that you can do more with less. What's interesting though is how you win and what you need to change about your process in order to win is also going to change in 2021.
Well, I have to imagine everyone's wondering, how do we win?
So how you win in 2021 is, I'm going to say twofold. On one hand, you have to be more efficient. And on the other hand, you have to be more effective. So competition in 2021 is expected to increase, not just because everyone wants to respond to more proposals or issue more proactive proposals, because they do, but because B2B businesses are looking just with heightened scrutiny at where their budgets are going and asking, can we do better? We saw this sort of as a knee-jerk reaction in 2020 as a lot of budgets just got slashed. But we're going to continue to see this in 2021 as renewals come up. And so with this increase in vendor scrutiny, there's just going to be more RFPs in the market to respond to.
Right. Okay, so if I'm a proposal leader, though, I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, okay, more RFPs, that's great. That means more chances to win for me. Am I wrong?
I mean, that's great if you can win them. The question becomes, how do you do that? So in part, it is a numbers game. The more submissions you submit, the better. In fact, according to RFPIO data from 2020, and this is a conservative estimate, the average RFP deal size was between 1 to 3 million US dollars. So if you can get your team and your systems working for you at the right speed, you can probably increase your opportunities to win. And that's no small feat, but honestly, it might not be enough. So if you had enough staff, you might be able to get more proposals submitted. But without that, your only real option is to turn to automation. So that's where you sort of get this juggling effect. You need to streamline your operations, build content libraries, improve your efficiencies with a tool like RFPIO, and then you can probably use that to your advantage to continuously grow your business by churning out speedy proposals. But they might be too generic to win. You need to keep your business healthy. And in order to do that, you really need to know that what you're spending time submitting has a good chance of winning. And I'm just going to say it. The time for generic proposals is dead. It just is. So what you're going to have to do to be competitive is work away from getting that generic proposal. You need to get to that first draft efficiently and then invest the time you saved in personalizing that submission to make the best fit solution case argument for the organization that issued the RFP so that they pick you. That's your effectiveness. And that's the clear path forward as far as I can see it for winning in 2021.
See now, and I love this because this is actually a core value at RFPIO, give back time. And that's our goal ultimately, right? It's to help proposal teams automate their proposal response process so they have more time. The question ends up being, though, what do you do with all that additional time?
Exactly. So not only are you going to have to do more with less, but you're also going to be expected to turn out increasingly competitive proposals. So companies are going to want to see customized submissions coming to them, content tailored to them, and not just in the executive summary, but throughout. And so as you can see from the data on the screen, organizations using an RFP specific software complete 43% more RFPs annually than those using a more manual system. What makes this possible is having a dynamic content library of existing question answer pairs that they can pull from. This helps you get a more complete first draft faster than ever before. And with the time that you save, you're then investing it into the personalization to make that best case argument for your organization. So with RFPIO, we offer clients a smart AI powered answer library where past question answer pairs are stored and categorized. So content organization and moderation becomes key. Content organization, I'm going to say it again because it's so important, even for people who are already using RFPIO. Organization and moderation of your content library is key to being successful at this. In fact, control over your answer library is a highly valuable time saving and streamlining process. So that will give you the efficiency you need so that you can then layer in the effectiveness between the draft one and the final submission.
And that makes a lot of sense. My team tells me all the time that the conversations they're having with proposal leaders, generally they're in the middle of responding to a proposal and they just got to a breaking point where they're so tired of doing it manually.
And that doesn't really surprise me because even in 2020, where budgets were being so highly scrutinized before, we were still seeing people investing in RFP proposal technology because teams were really just reaching that breaking point and realizing that there has to be a better way to do this. So that's expected to continue into the future. Teams know that has to be an easier way out there and they're looking for that, but getting budgets to do so or finding bandwidth to put such a tool in place have gotten in the way. Hopefully with 2021, this is also a year where proposal teams are able to make that case for themselves that they're profit centers and not cost centers. We already talked about this a little bit. The deals you guys work on they tend to be huge, bigger sales than most other sales. That $1 to $3 million per submission on average. That's a lot of money. You're driving revenue. You're bringing in money for your organization, and you need the tools to be successful. So I mentioned earlier that our survey found that 57% of organizations are not currently using an RFP specific technology. So if you're still doing a manual process, know that you're not alone. But if your processes are painful, if they were painful in 2019, painful in 2020, they're only going to get more painful in 2021 as competition increases.
Okay, so this is a lot of fantastic information. I want to try to bring it all back so it makes sense. Sounds like this year, 2021, proposal teams are going to see more RFPs coming their way with steeper competition. Also sounds like they're going to be expected to do all this additional work with less, and they're going to have to do it faster. From what we mentioned earlier, they're not going to get any additional headcount, which to me means that having a proposal response process in place and automating that is no longer a nice to have. It's really become a need to have at this point. And the benefit is once you do have something in place, you're going to be more effective and more efficient, ultimately winning more deals.
I mean, that's what I hope for people listening, that they take this information and they use it to build themselves a stronger responding organization as a whole.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, thank you, Jamie. I appreciated all the information.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for giving me the opportunity to share and for having some questions for me.
All right, guys, that's the end of what the content we had set out. I know a lot of you hopefully were looking at the benchmark report as we went over, and we did a few slides polls during this time period. So I wanted to hand it back over to Brandon and Jamie so that they could dive into some of that data and kind of continue the conversation. So the first one that we had that came out was just about what role describes it. So I'll go ahead and share those results so that you guys have an idea there too. Uh, so it looks like you guys align fairly well. Our group here today aligns fairly well with where you guys are sitting at for the team lead versus individual contributor. So Jamie and Brandon, kind of what's your guys' thoughts on the difference there, or why it was important to have those voices heard inside of the survey that we did, or inside the benchmark report, really, much more than a survey.
I'm happy to take that one. It's that we can trust the answers that come from leadership about projections for the next year. Not that individual contributors aren't in control of the work that they do and do a good job. It's just that leadership, it tends to be more in the loop about what the plans for the coming year are. So when they say trends are, our goals are to do more, or our goals are to hire more, it's just more dependable.
And if an individual contributor is looking at this report right here, what do you think that they should be taking away from it? If they were the one who filled it out, what questions should they maybe be asking their leadership then?
That's an awesome question. Brandon, is that something you'd like to talk about? Otherwise, I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, so from my perspective, oftentimes we have conversations with individual contributors that, because they're kind of in the wheelhouse, they're in the weeds doing the work. They recognize that they are struggling. They're usually the first ones to say, hey, this process is taking a really long time. So my suggestion would be taking the information that's being provided from this benchmark report and using it to, have a conversation with your leadership teams to I would say even get the ball rolling. To push for an automated process. If the leader on your team isn't aware of what's going on, then you're going to continue to struggle, and it's only going to get worse with more RFPs being responded to.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is your pain is probably real and matters, and might feel isolated. And maybe your immediate leadership cares about you. I hope they do, especially during a pandemic and working from home and all the other struggles we're all facing right now. But in order to really get this tool, to get the budget you need for a tool like this, you probably have to make a strong business case. And I'm not sure that everybody is used to making a business case for getting a technology that's like this, a sort of this automation tool, which is a big purchase for a lot of companies. So if that's something that you're struggling with, please contact us, let us know. We help people make this business case all the time, and it's something we'd be happy to work with you on.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So the next poll that we had out just kind of dived into a bit more of those numbers. And again, they aligned really closely with our set of data from the benchmark report, with people really are looking to do more RFPs in 2021. The other one that's interesting is while the majority of them don't plan on hiring an additional headcount, there was a good chunk of people who are unsure if they're going to be hiring. And I don't know if that speaks to kind of where we're sitting at currently, where there almost feels like there is a slight tide change in where we're sitting at. So it'd be interesting if you guys could just kind of talk about those ideas a little bit.
So I would imagine that from the standpoint of being unsure, it's, when I'm thinking of an issue and I'm going through a process, if I don't know of a software that can help me solve it, I might look to increase headcount. It might end up being the only option, but in reality, in this case, there are options out there. And so if I'm someone who is unsure as to whether or not I'm going to increase headcount, that's probably coming from the standpoint of, I know 2021 is going to be rough with the number of RFPs. Increasing headcount could be a way, but I'd like to avoid it. And I could avoid it by getting a proposal management software.
I mean, and I think there's just so much uncertainty right now. It's nice to hear that there are things happening in the world that change the market conditions, that maybe our economy will start to shift in better directions. At least the US, I know, is trying to put out those plans. Other countries are doing better or worse than that and building plans internationally. I think we all are pretty comfortable with uncertainty right now, but it doesn't surprise me that there is just so much uncertainty around goals as companies are figuring out. Maybe the plans are, a lot of companies have changed to 90-day plans, not even whole year plans anymore. So it doesn't surprise me that people are unsure. Just know that there are solutions and there are options if headcount if increasing headcount isn't an option for your organization.
Fantastic. And then the last poll that we went out is a little bit of a deeper dive, I would say, in this case, and kind of dives into this idea of efficient and effective. The first one, definitely what scenario matches your current situation. And we were at a 50-50 split there. So some people are taking a lot of time to track down generic answers, and some do have a streamlined approach to their, again, matches pretty closely with what we have. And then 21 to 40% or 43% do say that they can reuse some of their questions across the projects. And I think this really hits on that effective and efficient one. So I didn't know if you guys kind of had any more thoughts, or if maybe there was some other data that we had inside the report that you kind of wanted to highlight these ideas.
I guess my point would be that I look at this and I think, okay, it's probably pretty painful if in general your RFP answers are not reusable. If you're in that 0 to 20%, that can be really difficult because an automation platform is just not going to give, it's only going to, give you 20% of the answers on any given RFP you use to help. So you are going to end up doing a lot more manual work than people who answer a lot of repetitive questions. But I'd say that if you have even if you're in that 21% upwards, you can save a huge amount of time not looking for those answers manually. And there's a real opportunity there to streamline your operations and get things done faster. If you're using a tool that says, you know what, that's an already answered question that you've used in the past. In fact, you have a subject matter expert who reviewed it and provided that answer. It's already been moderated. Maybe there's even a few different flavors of that answer that you can pick from easily. That's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to save your organization a lot of time. It's going to save your subject matter experts from stopping what they're doing to answer your questions. And they're being like, this has been asked and answered. I already know I've given you this answer before. And it's just going to increase the overall agility and morale of your organization is what I'd say.
Very nice. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I guess I'm going to right now. As we were obviously putting this webinar together, there's a lot more inside the benchmark report. So was there anything inside of there that didn't make it into this webinar that surprised you maybe in a way, Jamie, or that you found interesting and weren't expecting?
Definitely. I'd say the two things that really popped for me as I put this together. One of them is in the benchmark report and one of them isn't, because I kind of didn't even know what to make of it from an analyst perspective. So I'll go with the one that is in the benchmark report. You can look at it, you can read it, but didn't make it into these slides. And that is the number of tools that organizations are using. So for example, we found that organizations that were doing a more manual process were using a lot more tools to get any one RFP proposal created, which means they're switching between tools pretty often, which can be very jarring if you've ever been someone who has a lot of tabs or screens and you're working between them. I mean, we all have our monitor setups now at home. It can be really hard, and you waste a lot of time switching between tools. What we found is that people that were using an RFP specific software still used, maybe 5 tools, because we're all still going to be in Word, we're going to be in PowerPoint, we're going to be in Excel, depending on what the proposal requires. But we found that they were using 5 tools compared to on average 9 with a more manual process. And so there's just a huge amount of time saving there, and it just makes it just an easier process, I'd say. So that was one of the things that didn't make it into this conversation, but is in the report and you can read in more detail. The other one was the survey results overall suggested that the number of people involved in completing each RFP was just so much higher in the survey results than we see with our own RFPIO data. So overall, on average, from the survey for this report, we found that the average number of people, here's a question. The average number of people involved in each, I'm gonna let people answer it and then I'll give everyone a second. I don't wanna skew the numbers. But on average, from the survey results, we found that it was somewhere between, it hovered around eight people involved in each RFP response, whereas our own RFPIO numbers put it down at closer to like 3.5. And that to me just shows a more streamlined operation, that you're probably not having to go back to as many subject matter experts every time. I mean, I saw some numbers in the raw data where people were coming back with like 45 different people touched any one RFP response. I can't even imagine. Oh yeah, so here, okay, we have survey data now. That's awesome. And we do see that people are hovering in that like 6 to 10 people are involved in each response. But that the next results on there are like 1 to 5. So people do have streamlined processes. It would be interesting in my mind that a follow-up report would look at what the optimum number of people involved in each response would be.
Fantastic. Yeah, you set me up so perfectly for this survey that I didn't get a chance to launch during it. So I was excited to be able to do that right then. So it'd be great to know. And we did get a question that came in. It would be interesting to know the breakdown by industry. Was that a question that you asked inside the report?
Yes, it is. And I believe it is in the final report. Let me pull it up. If not, I'm happy to share those results separately. I think by and large, we bucketed people into 1 of 10 industries. I don't think I included it in the final cut because it was just a pie chart that didn't look that interesting. But I am happy to share those results out in the follow-up email to this session. But we had 10 different industries. And if there's another question, let me come back to that one, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You can take your time on side of there. Brandon, you weren't in the aspect of being able to help put this report together. Jamie really did the analyst, but was there any other questions that kind of come up that you thought, wow, this is super helpful for my SDR team, or some of those key points that you guys have, the data was matching up what you guys are hearing on the phone, I guess I would say in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. And apologies, construction going on in the background here. Right. So one of the biggest things that made absolute sense was the number of individuals that are working to respond to RFPs. When I first joined RFPIO and I started hearing, individuals say, "Oh, I've got 10 people, I've got 11, 12." I'm thinking there's no way. And every conversation we have, there's generally a decent sized team actually responding to RFPs and being involved in that process. Beyond that, what's been beneficial to the team, to my team in general, just to understand is the number of systems and tools that are being used to respond in that process. Talked to a company that was using Teams, Slack, and email, just 3 different communication systems just to respond to an RFP. And the amount of back and forth that leads to how long it takes us to get a response to me, I could see why having a system in place to automate that and make it faster and streamlined just makes so much sense.
Absolutely. I can see how things can get lost inside of there. I don't have any more questions that are coming in. So Jamie, I didn't know if you were able to find the answer to the industry, or if you guys do have any other questions, feel free to chat them or put them inside of the Q&A panel down here too.
I'm earnestly pivot tabling, but I will. How about I clean up that data and send it to you, Kelsey, and then everyone can get it in the follow-up email.
Perfect. That sets me up great. That is all the time that we have for the session, and it looks like most of the questions here. As always, if you are an RFPIO customer, even if you aren't, please feel free to reach out to us. Your CSM, your SDR that you're working with, or maybe your AE are always here to help you out with anything that you have questions about. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you do. I will be sending out an email with the link to this webinar. So if you want to catch any of that, that you might have missed, it will also have a link to the benchmark report, so you guys can download there, and then Jamie's promised answers to what the industry breakdown looks like. I want to thank you guys all again for joining us for our first webinar of 2021. We definitely have a whole bunch more lined up, so hope to see you in the future. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Have a great day.